What's up, everybody? Welcome to Catfish on Ice. It's episode 268 with Chad Minton and Max Greenberg. We missed everybody, but hey, it's quality over quantity here in the offseason. But we're happy to bring this podcast to you. Catfish on Ice, brought to you by DraftKings with our promo code THPN. And we're part of the Hockey Podcast Network. Thank you for watching on YouTube live right now or also on Facebook. Hit subscribe, hit follow. Make sure you join in live on the conversation. And there's 4 teams left, Max, in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah.
But none of those 4 teams are the center of the hockey world right now. It is that team that everyone loves to hate, that team that everyone loves to see fail. And it's riddling my feed right now. It's all over the feed. I think you know who I'm talking about, Max. But first of all, before we get into all that and more, including plenty of Preds talk, how you doing, Max? I missed you, man. How you doing?
Pretty good. Life's been busy lately, like really busy working, paying off a bunch of bills, things like that. But hey, getting a podcast in. I also have a vacation this week, so that'll be good.
Oh, man, you just mentioned 2 different things there. You mentioned bills, not so fun, but vacation, pretty good.
That's pretty good.
A little thumbs down, thumbs up.
Yeah, no, hoping to get some relaxation, take my mind off of real world stuff and just get some relaxation in.
I'm digging the hat, by the way, the Nash hat.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, we are optimistic here, all right? If you've been following this podcast, like every fan knows that are this diehards of the Nashville Predators. It's been a rough season. It's been the hardest season that any Preds fan can really remember since, even if you've been following this team since the early days. This has been one of the hardest seasons to ever follow this team. It's tested your loyalty.
Both Tennessee teams, both the Preds and the Titans.
Yes.
It's been real tough.
But we have had time to process it. We've had time to let the dust settle. We've had time to think about it. And then the NHL draft lottery just kicks us in the kneecaps one more time and sends us back to number 5, the worst possible scenario that could have happened. In the lottery scenarios, number 5 was the worst the Preds could have landed at, and that's where they land at. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Of course, again, I'll save you the suspense. You can see his image there on the live stream. But we got to talk about the Maple Leafs once again choking in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. I saw a crazy, crazy tweet I'll share about just how much of a failure the Toronto Maple Leafs franchise has been going all the way back to 2004. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about the Maple Leafs because guess what? That's what the entire NHL world's talking about. They're not talking about the Final Four as much, which is who we should also be talking about, and we will talk about in episode 268 tonight. How about the Dallas Stars versus the Edmonton Oilers?
Yep.
Dream matchup for any diehard hockey fan. And then in the East, we got the Carolina Hurricanes going up against the Florida Panthers, the defending champs. So you've got a dream Final Four if you're just a pure hockey fan with no dog in the fight. So we got that going for us. But the Toronto Maple Leafs are still the center of the conversation right now in the hockey world because of Mitch Marner, the 100-point scorer, but the playoff choker. Not joker, choker. But so we got to talk about that. But it's been a little bit. It's been like 3 weeks since our last episode. We've taken some time off to decompress, me and Max both. We want to bring quality over quantity on this podcast, especially when it's the off season. But we're hoping next year we're putting out these episodes left and right because the Preds are in pursuit of the Stanley Cup. But where we're at right now, we're taking some time off. But we do have to get into plenty of Preds talk. A lot's happened. Barry Trotz finally gave his media press conference to talk about everything. Andrew Brunette was confirmed as coming back. That was pretty much already written on the wall, but we still weren't sure.
Right.
There were still people out there saying, hey, we don't know for sure. And so we got that confirmation. So we got to give me and Max both. Max has been very clear on both sides. He's given his arguments to both sides of bringing Andrew Brunette back and not bringing him back, which I think is really fair to do because you can make valid arguments for both. So we'll dissect that a little bit more. And am I missing anything, Max? Those are 3 really big topics right there.
Yeah, I think we should. I was hoping we could talk a little bit about potentially offseason moves, who might be coming back, who might not be, who potentially targets. I got a few offseason in mind who I don't expect Barry Trotz to go after, but I have them in mind.
And also Trotz kind of mentioned like tweaks in his offseason press conference. He mentioned tweaks, but not crazy seismic changes. He mentioned wanting to let the youth grow more, which he's always hinted at. I got the vibe from Trotz that he's going to run it back, mainly. I did not get a good vibe at all, I'll be honest, from his press conference. I know I thought that it was a lot of excuse making. I thought it was a lot of blaming other things.
You know what else? It was a lot of coach speak as a GM. And it always come back to that. Trotz is in here thinking, if this make this fix, we can but no, it's not how you're a GM. You can't really think of like this is a quick fix. This, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean,
but we're going to get into more of that later. But let's go ahead and start the episode off with the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's the Final Four. First of all, Max, let me ask you this first.
Mm-hmm.
Are you really surprised by the Final Four? Is there a team that's not in the Final Four that you're like, wow, you really wet the bed by not making it to the Final Four? No.
In fact, with my NHL, this year is one of the years where my NHL bracket predictions are actually cooking. I got 3 of the 4 right. The only team I did not get right, I had Vegas beating Edmonton in the second round, and Edmonton beat Vegas. So that's the only team I did not get right.
The only part of the bracket I really got tripped up on was Colorado and Dallas. I'll admit that I was like totally torn on how that could go. And quite frankly, Colorado, by all the analytics, outplayed Dallas in that series. But Dallas made the more clutch plays, made the more clutch moments. And a credit to Dallas for that. And now Dallas just took care of Winnipeg in a really emotional series, especially when we find out what happened with Scheifele and his father. And I just got to give a lot of love to the Dallas Stars organization for the class that they showed. Because we got to remember that hockey is, I mean, these guys are still human, obviously. And like, it was like it kind of made the game. Obviously, they're not going to lay down and lose on purpose to make the Jets win or anything. But like, it was cool that to see hockey come together like that. It's such a brutal sport. These guys hate each other between the lines. But the handshake line after the Stars won it gave me chills, man. Yeah. I mean, each player gave an extra long hug to Scheifele. You're talking about grown men who are at the pinnacles of their brutal sport they play, like gladiators going in an arena. And when it's all said and done, these guys see another human who just lost his father.
Yeah. It was especially cool because Jamie Benn in Game 5 cheap shot of the hell out of Mark Scheifele. Then in the handshake line, he was given obviously his well wishes as everyone was. And let's also talk. I know they're teammates, same organization, but let's also talk about how the Jets themselves rallied around Mark Scheifele in that game. And how cool was it too? I mean, obviously this isn't the main thing. And of course, Scheifele, he chose to play, obviously didn't have to, but how cool was it too that he ended up scoring that goal on the day that his dad died? I mean,
can't imagine.
Yeah.
And the fact that he played the game and like, I mean, you saw teammates after the game saying, hey, we just weren't good enough to win that game for Scheifele. But you know what? In the end, it's really more than that. It's about family. It's about rallying around someone. You know, we could all relate to that if it was our job or our friend or whatever it is that we have in our walk of life, and we see a friend or a coworker in need who goes through something like that, we would rally around them as well. So it's cool to see that human moment, and see it all come down. But so congratulations to the Dallas Stars. They're such a complete team. I have a lot of respect for their general manager, who his name's escaping me right now.
Neil?
Yeah. Probably the best GM, in my opinion, in hockey right now. The way he's constructed that team, the way he swindled the Preds to get Matt Duchene, and the Preds are still paying Matt Duchene. But not even just that, Mikael Granlund has been a great pickup for them on the trade deadline.
Him or Bill Zito, potentially.
And the way that the Stars have built their prospect pool up, they got young guys. that are a big deal, but they've also got their veterans chipping in. I mean, they are the complete package. They got their goalie in Ottinger, who can be streaky at times, but you can count on him to win big games, which he has done already this playoffs. They're the complete package. I mean, the Dallas Stars are the complete package right now. But there's 3 other teams who are also really good and deserving of being this deep. Out of the 4 teams left, Max, who do you think is actually the most complete team? Would you say it's Dallas, which I say it they are? Florida. Or would you say it's one of those? It's a hard question to answer because they're all good.
Florida.
Okay. So you think it's Dallas, Florida? Is that your prediction?
No. I actually think Edmonton's going to win it all this year.
All right. Well, they're due.
Yeah.
And I would be totally fine with that, honestly, because you're talking about the unequivocal best player in the world. We are all going to look back on this in 20 years and think how privileged we were to watch Connor McDavid play this sport. Just like old timers today look back and say they were very privileged to watch Wayne Gretzky in his prime. We are going to be saying the same thing. Like, I tell people that I realize that Connor McDavid gets a lot of hate because he's the superstar. You know, LeBron gets that same treatment. Like, superstars get that hate, but like, you just have to marvel at Connor McDavid. And the fact that the dude doesn't have a Stanley Cup yet is just crazy. And as long as Stuart Skinner can hold up between the pipes, you would think that Edmonton has what it takes. I'm going to break away from you, Max, and we'll revisit this in a few weeks. I think Dallas is going to beat Edmonton.
Yeah.
I do think it's going to be a deep series. I could see it going 7.
Yeah. No,
I think Dallas is the more complete team than Edmonton. I think Edmonton has some cracks, especially in their defense and in their goaltending. I trust Ottinger more than I trust Skinner. I think Dallas is deeper than Edmonton. But we'll see. The deeper and better team doesn't always win.
No, not at all. And part of the thing, too, with Edmonton is ever since they went down 2-0 against LA, they've been playing really good hockey. They've lost 1 game since. They're probably the hottest team in the playoffs right now. Again, just playing really, really good hockey. They're also playing good defense, too. In front of the goaltenders, and the goaltenders still playing well when they're, of course, getting help. And also, they haven't even gotten Mattias Ekholm back yet, and that'll probably give them a boost when he comes back in the 3rd round, too.
There you go.
I think not. It's of course, when, like you said, Chad, the more we've watched and learned, it's not just about the talent on the ice. It's about how you're playing. I think Edmonton's playing a really, really good brand of hockey right now, and when they get Mattias Ekholm back, that's only going to help them. I think they've reached a point right now where I don't think they're going to be denied. Like, could be. I do think it's going to be a rematch of Edmonton, Florida. I think Edmonton's going to steal it this year.
I will also say, though, and this is me being subjective and not objective, but I think that Dallas has had the way harder path to the conference finals than Edmonton has had.
Edmonton played Vegas.
Okay. Dallas had to go through a Stanley Cup contender in the first round.
Sure, but I mean, even
and then they had to go through the top seed in the Western Conference.
Again, Connor Hellebuyck was giving up 7 goals a game on the road.
But that's like I said. I think that, but either way, it's the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's difficult.
Part of my thing too is Edmonton is not. They're doing this without Ekholm. The whole time they've done this without Ekholm. Their best defensive defenseman. I mean, that's a big deal.
It's a big deal, but we'll see. I think Dallas is going to actually. I give Dallas a good chance to beat him in 6, honestly. But
I think the series goes at least 6. I'll say that for sure.
But I give the nod to Dallas, and I've rode with Dallas for the last 2 seasons, honestly, to win a Stanley Cup.
And honestly, I'm doing something a little. Maybe I shouldn't. I picked Florida to repeat, but with Edmonton staying in the playoffs, I'm saying I think Edmonton's going to get it done.
All right,
especially with the way.
So let's go to the East. Let's shift to the East. Carolina. They've been due for a while. They've been building they're a team that's been building their regular season success for a while. They're a regular mainstay in the playoffs. They're being branded as a boring hockey team. Have you seen this narrative in the playoffs?
Oh, of course. I mean, it's playoff hockey. I don't know what people expect anymore.
But I mean, be that as it may, I mean, look, the Washington Capitals was a fun story with Alex Ovechkin and all that stuff. But in the end, Carolina just proved, I mean, they won that series in 5. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Carolina is legit, obviously. We've known that for a while. So I'm not surprised at all that Carolina's in the conference finals. And then, you know, when it comes to Florida, it's so hard to do what they're doing. I mean, if they beat Carolina and they make it to the Cup, that'll be their 3 straight Cup Finals appearances, correct?
Okay, no, they didn't make it last year.
They didn't?
Nope. Remember, Florida played the Rangers, remember? Last year? In the 3rd round?
Well, no. Wait, so Florida won it last year?
Are you saying Florida?
Yeah. The
I thought you said Carolina. No, yeah, of course Florida made it.
No. Yeah, I'm like, you're throwing me off.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I know. Florida's made this is their 3rd straight year. Yes. Okay.
If they make the Cup final this year, it'll be 3 straight Cup Finals appearances.
Yes.
Okay. It all gets jumbled up at this point.
I thought you said Carolina. I was like,
no, you're good. You're good. So, like, my point is, like, how hard that is to do. I mean, the Tampa Bay Lightning did that, but they also had the pandemic years sandwiched in there when they did the 3 years in a row.
They backed it up how good those teams were.
No, they were. But my point is, what Florida's doing is even more impressive. And so, with that, let's reverse back and talk about what Florida just did to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Sorry for the chuckle.
I'm laughing.
But they were down 2-0 in that series. I live down here in Florida. I know a lot of Lightning fans who hate the Florida Panthers with a passion.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
So, but they also do not like the Toronto Maple Leafs. And so it was like a battle of like, how do I feel about this when I was talking to Lightning fans down here? And I think they all came around and said, yeah, we're going to all rally around seeing the Toronto Maple Leafs suffer more pain. I think that's what it came down to. I put this out there on X tonight, and I'll find it real quick. But I've never seen a team more universally hated than what the Toronto Maple Leafs are right now. Not just by other fans, but their own fans. I mean, they are taking it from every angle, Max. I mean, go ahead.
I mean, the amount of booze in that arena last night. Jerseys on the ice, all kinds of stuff. I mean, I don't blame the fans too much, but I mean, actually, I kind of do. Those fans are absolutely ridiculous, and they bring it upon themselves too. I mean, I think they're right for booing the performance, but like it's just crazy what those fans.
I mean, hey, you can come in right now and talk crap, but like, look, I don't feel every Toronto Maple Leafs fan is like this, but I've never seen a more entitled fan base. I'm just going to be honest.
With the effort, with the whether lack thereof of the effort that the Maple Leafs had last night, you better believe I'd be booing too. I mean, they lost.
Oh, I'm not blaming them for booing at all.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people watch the game. But if you didn't watch the game, when people say Toronto lost every single puck battle, I mean, they got bullied.
It's just kind of crazy to me that, I mean, first of all, I do feel great that this pain can be taken away that I feel as a Preds fan. I mean, to see another team go through this, and you're talking about a large blue blood market team like the Toronto Maple Leafs. And yes, those fans have been through a lot. They deserve to be as angry as they are. I can't get over the entitlement, though. Like, right. I mean, the way I get it. Mitch Marner is a choker when it comes to the playoffs. He just put up a 100-point season, and he's a Toronto native, and he's 27 years old. And the way they have just literally tossed him into the grinder like they have is crazy to me. I can't, as a small market fan, I can't understand it. And maybe I won't ever understand it. I don't know what it's like to be a Toronto Maple Leafs fan since I was, like, let's say I was like 20 years older than I am now. And I've been a fan of the Maple Leafs since I was a little baby in the crib. And yeah, I guess I can't understand your pain. I get that if you want to push back on me on that. But like the hate and disrespect that Mitch Marner is getting, a native of your, and like I'm kind of understanding now why Ryan O'Reilly said, "No, I'm good. I'm going to go play in Nashville."
Did you hear what Matthew Tkachuk said?
I did catch it, but refresh everybody, Max.
So basically what Matthew Tkachuk said was like, they have a really, really good team in Toronto up there. He basically said if they were in any other city not dealing with that market, they may have Stanley Cups by now, is what he basically said. He's like, I wouldn't want to be dealing with that.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I'm going to put on the screen here. This is what Elliot Friedman is saying on the latest 32 Thoughts podcast. I think there are a lot of teams out there who believe he will be, this is talking about Mitch Marner, he will be a better player outside of Toronto, that he will go away, it will be quieter, and he will thrive. And before I even heard this podcast, saw that post, I was saying that all day today.
I saw you tweeting about that.
Sometimes the grass is greener on the other side. It's not always. But and this is not me making a promotion for the Preds to go out and get Mitch Marner. And we can try to make that tie because we are a Preds podcast. We can tie that together here in a second. But real quick, let me just finish my point on the initial point is that I just, for me personally, I don't understand all the hate that Mitch Marner is getting right now. I get it. He chokes in the playoffs. He hasn't lived up to it. He hasn't scored the goals in the playoffs over his Maple Leafs career. I get all that. That's where you earn your money. I get that he's about to seek one of the highest contracts ever, but let's all put it in perspective here. It's called inflation. Salary cap's going to go up significantly over the next few years in the NHL. And the Maple Leafs are in they're backed up into a corner right now when it comes to their salary cap. Yeah. They got to deal with John Tavares and get him re-signed. They got Austin Matthews, who was also a failure in this playoff series as being the highest paid player.
I posted the missing on a milk carton meme and him and Marner's faces on it.
I mean, why am I here? For every 10 posts I see bashing Mitch Marner, I see one bashing Austin Matthews. When I think, if anything, it should be equal. I mean, I'm not trying to be a Mitch Marner apologist. I'm just calling it how I feel. I don't understand all the hate the guy's getting. He did have a really inexplicable backhand turnover that ended in I can't even remember what game it was. It was
5.
It was not the elimination game. It was the game before the elimination game. But he had a horrible backhand pass, turned over the puck, and then he was late covering the back door, and it ended up in the back of the net, and the Maple Leafs lost that game. It was a crucial giveaway. But here's another thing. Marner is, and he should be under the microscope all the time because he is a superstar player. He is a 100-point scorer. But the dude is always under the microscope. People who already don't like him are always looking for every little mistake he makes. And my only point is, it takes a team. Yeah. And any team who pursues Mitch Marner has to realize that as well. But Mitch Marner is a two-way player. A lot of people don't realize he's a good defensive
for the longest time.
He's a good defensive forward.
He is.
The biggest knock that Mitch Marner has right now, and it is very valid, is he is a regular season player. That is the narrative of him, and it's a fair narrative. But he's 27 years old, folks. And he has been under that scrutiny of that Toronto. I'm going to call it right now. I'm not calling the city a cesspool. I'm talking about hockey, just hockey. So don't twist my words. And I'm not calling Toronto as a city a cesspool. I'm talking about that market, that hockey market is a cesspool, in my opinion. And I've found some very interesting points being made throughout the day today that are saying it's going to hurt their attractiveness to free agents out there. In terms of, do I really want to go subject myself to that?
I mean, just ask Ryan O'Reilly, like you said.
I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. I think more players. Now, obviously, there's going to be players who are like, no, I want to wear that sweater because that's like hockey allure. And that's never going to go away. And there's going to be guys who are going to say, no, I want to go win a cup for that franchise, for Toronto, for the hockey mecca. Like, yeah, it's always going to be desirable to go there. But I think the brand is really hurt right now.
Yeah.
And you can attack Mitch Marner all you want. I think it's just in bad taste, in my opinion.
And part of me, and I'm sure Marner will, of all the teams he has to choose from, I'm sure he won't go to Nashville, and I'm sure
let's kind of break down the scenarios though.
What I was going to say with that potentially was if he were to go to Nashville,
a big if.
That would be eye-opening, and I think I might have said this around this time last year when it was a possibility that the Preds might trade for him. But I think it'd be really eye-opening if he even just ended up in Nashville, because, of course, we all know the thing with Ryan O'Reilly leaving Toronto, and Barry Trotz. We know that Ryan O'Reilly's someone that he trusts big time, and Barry Trotz, I'm sure, would not look at a guy like Mitch Marner unless he got word from Ryan O'Reilly saying, yeah, like, this guy is a good add to our team. And what would that say about Toronto, where it's like, if Ryan O'Reilly, who left Toronto because he wanted nothing to do with the organization, is vouching for Mitch Marner to be on the Preds, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
So look, I've crunched the numbers, and with where the Preds are at in their projected cap space this offseason, they would have to make a trade and unload some money, because Mitch Marner is Mitch Marner, like, the Preds are actually middle of the pack last time I checked when it comes to projected salary cap space. Like, they don't have a ton of money. They really don't, compared to some of these other teams who will be.
They're lucky to have any after last year.
Yeah, so, like, I mean, they can definitely make some low-end moves if they want to this offseason, but I'm talking about to go get Mitch Marner, they would have to. I already said in my article for Predlines like a week ago, I said if just in hypothetical terms, if the Preds were to pursue Mitch Marner, they would probably have to trade at least two guys. And I thought Ryan O'Reilly was actually the one they'd have to actually trade or find a way to move.
That's a fair point.
But then that doesn't solve your center issues, which is really what this team's problem is. Mitch Marner needs to play with an elite center to really unlock his. You're not going to pay Mitch Marner $13, $14 million a year long term if you don't have a center to play with him.
Yeah,
it's just not a match. He's not coming to Nashville. It doesn't make sense. I think most fans don't want Mitch Marner anyway in this market, from what I've read. But I'm just saying, like, it's not a match. But there's going to be plenty of teams out there who do. It's going to be really fascinating to watch this offseason. And there's still a chance that the Maple Leafs could pull a random Houdini act and keep Mitch Marner. I'm not even leaving that off the table. It's all about what does Mitch Marner and his agent really want, and that's something we don't know.
I can't remember where I saw it, but I do believe it was a reputable source. And granted, it's way before July 1st, but it sounded like they were leaning towards getting him a fresh start elsewhere.
Let's say hi to a few comments here. We got Alec. He used to write for Predlines, good friend of the show. Hey, Alec, it's good to see you again, man. Nice to hear from you. He says, howdy, fellas. Playoffs are insane this year. They always are, Alec. Cool. But yes, sir, this year they are. And then we get I'm not going to even say that name because I don't want to say but this person on YouTube says, let's call it say lib. Says fire pod boys. Thank you. Appreciate that. And Alex says, good to see y'all. Good to see you too as well, Alex. Thank you for commenting on YouTube. But I want to share what I just put on the screen here. This is from Sandy on X. And this is tying the Jets in because you talk about the Canadian fan bases and stuff. And, of course, a Canadian team has not won the Stanley Cup in a long, long time. Early 90s, I think, Canadians. My history serves me correct. It's like 1992. I don't know. Someone fact check me. Where's Johnny when we need him?
Yeah, right.
Encyclopedia. But it's somewhere around there. It's been a long time since a Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup. But
that's what I think the streak is going to be broken this year.
But Sandy on X says, why didn't the Jets get the same amount of hate the Leafs are getting Well, for one, the Jets fan base actually likes their players. That's a good one.
They don't burn their jerseys or throw them on the ice either.
Oh my God, it's so ridiculous. Of course,
that ties back to liking their players, but still.
Yeah, it's crazy. But
I mean, I would personally have. This is kind of. Of course, it's more than just one or two things, but I feel like I'd have a lot more respect for the Maple Leafs fan base if they weren't like throwing jerseys on the ice at Game 5, like throwing jerseys, burning them, all that.
Let's share. I want to share one more post here. Like I said, it's been like all over my feed. Is just Mitch Marner. It's not even about the teams that are actually in. But I want to share one more thing here on the screen, and this is from Puck Empire. Most likely landing spots for Mitch Marner, and me and Max are going to react to this list real quick. Number 1, Chicago Blackhawks. Please no. Please no. Number 2, Utah Mammoth, the new name. I like the Mammoth.
Yeah.
That's a cool name. It's not as good as the Yeti.
That wasn't even a thing by the time that was our last pod either.
But I mean, the Yeti would have been cool, but the real Yeti didn't want to give up that name. So whatever. But number 3, Columbus Blue Jackets. I'd be totally cool with that.
That would be a great.
Please, story. Mitch Marner, please stay in the Eastern Conference, and please do not come to the Central Division. Deal. Number 4, Detroit Red Wings. I could see that happening. I think he's going to a big market. I really do. As a free agent, he has a lot of control. He's an unrestricted free agent. He can go wherever he wants. His agent is going to work wonders for Mitch Marner. He's going to go to a big market blue blood. He's going to make a name for it. He wants to. If I can climb into Mitch Marner's head and think about what he's thinking right now, I would think that he wants to go to a big market team and make a name for himself and get out of that Toronto Maple Leafs shadow. Even though he is a Toronto native, and I mean, I saw the video where he was dropping F-bombs, calling out his teammates.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I mean, unless he's got a future in Hollywood in acting, that was raw emotion.
Oh yeah, no, he was,
and I respected that. I love seeing that from him, even as a non-fan of either team watching that series. I respected that a lot from Mitch Marner. I think he's going to the New York Rangers, which is not even on this list, which is kind of crazy. The Rangers aren't even on this list. How is the Rangers?
Do they have cap space though?
I've seen the New York Rangers shared. I've seen the Pittsburgh Penguins a lot. The Predators are number 9 on this list. I feel like this list was just kind of thrown together just to get clicks, honestly. Which they did a good job because we're talking about it.
Right.
But no, the New York Rangers could pull it off if they made enough moves. I think he's going to a big market team. It wouldn't surprise me if he would. But the Utah Mammoth, that's actually one I've heard a lot of people talk about. Because if Mitch Marner does decide to go to a smaller market and make a name for himself,
that would be a great opportunity.
How crazy would it be if you went to Utah? Utah's a new team. I mean, they got the Coyotes players. I get that, but they're treated as a new team, a new brand.
Yeah.
If I'm the agent for Mitch Marner and I'm talking in his ear right now, I'm like, hey man, Utah Mammoth might not be a bad play for you. You can go there and be the face of that franchise instantly.
And they're going to love him.
Oh yeah. They would embrace him. They'd have a statue before he even played his first game.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, I think that Utah seems like a likely destination. I could see him going to Detroit. Definitely. Please not Chicago.
Yeah, or St. Louis for that matter.
Yeah, but we're biased. The Islanders, maybe. I could see that happening as well. Definitely.
Now that would be hilarious.
He's definitely not going to Calgary. I'm sorry. I don't think he's going to Calgary. I don't think he's... Go
After
ahead.
The whole John Tavares thing, how hilarious would it be if he went to the Islanders?
Yeah.
That I actually want to see that. If it's not the Preds, I mean, it's probably not, but I want to see. I want to see that.
Yeah, I think Utah is a good one. Detroit. I don't know why the New York Rangers aren't on here. Maybe I'm missing something, but I've seen the New York Rangers be brought up a lot by like some pretty reputable sources. So I don't know why the New York Rangers aren't on this list. Maybe they do have to do some cap maneuvering. I haven't studied every team's cap space, so I couldn't speak on that deeply. But it's going to be fascinating to watch nonetheless. So good stuff there. Let's get in more Preds talk now. Now that we've talked about our Stanley Cup reaction, Final Four is in set. I got Dallas. Max has got Edmonton. Neither one of us are picking the Eastern Conference team to lift the cup, correct?
Florida, a very close second.
Okay.
I would say Florida. I think it's Edmonton. For me, it's Edmonton, Florida, and then there's Dallas, Carolina.
There you go. I've got Dallas versus Florida, and I got Dallas lifting the cup. But it's gonna be fun. I mean, for me, it could come down to and this isn't like a nuanced position here at all, but it's going to come down to goaltending and Bobrovsky versus Ottinger. That could be a all-time goalie duel.
One thing I also say, and I know, he's not a bad coach, but he does have a history coming up short in the playoffs. I would take Paul Maurice over Pete DeBoer pretty much every time.
Even though Pete DeBoer has taken he's been fired twice and taken 6 of his last 7 teams to conference finals. Did you see that stat? Crazy like that?
Again, he's certainly not a bad coach, but also think of the amount of talent he's been blessed with as a head coach.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that guy's had so many talented teams in his career as a coach.
Let's tell you about our DraftKings offer right now. Let's switch gears and let's tell you about the NBA offer we got right now for our listeners. The NBA 82-game grind is done, and now the real fun begins. The NBA playoffs are here, and it's time for all the high-stakes drama, clutch moments, and jaw-dropping plays. I can't wait. If you're looking to make the playoffs even more exciting, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered. As an official sports betting partner of the NBA, try placing a bet on your favorite player's performance. Will they drop 40, 30 points, 40 or more? It's your call. Just like the Stanley Cup playoffs, the NBA playoffs are also in their Final Four. They usually run concurrently. So if you're an NBA, NHL fan, this is a great time of year for you. You basically are busy every night of the week because there's always a game. And the NBA playoffs have been very exciting as well. They've had some injuries. Steph Curry got knocked out, which is a downer. But it's been a good NBA playoffs. I have been watching. I'm not the biggest NBA fan, nothing like my NHL fandom, but I do love NBA playoff basketball. I do. It's just something about a 7-game series, whether it's NHL or NBA, just gets me going. And the NBA playoffs have been really exciting this year. And you've got some superstars that are in it. You've also got the Oklahoma City Thunder, who is just a new team out there. That's fun to watch. You've got the Minnesota Timberwolves with Anthony Edwards, which gives you a reason to watch. You're seeing the young guys in the NBA take center stage, which is fun. So here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Make it a playoff run to remember with DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY. That's 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. All right, so let's move along to some Preds talk here. Let's first talk about Andrew Brunette being confirmed as getting a year 3 with this organization. And I've always been on the fence about how I felt about him coming back, but ultimately I always knew he was probably going to come back because, quite frankly, he's in the friend zone with Barry Trotz, and he's getting probably a longer leash than many NHL coaches would get with different GMs and a different relationship with the GM. But Andrew Brunette he was a former player of this organization. He scored the first goal for this organization. He is really close to Barry Trotz in a lot of ways. And he's had 2 years. And his first year, the team overperformed. The second year, they dramatically underperformed. So I think year 3 is the equalizer. It's let's see what the law of averages is. Are you more like the head coach we just saw? Or are you more like the head coach in year 1 where you got more out of this team than we expected? I think in that respect, Andrew Brunette should get a third year on the caveat that it is a very, very short leash.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at with it.
That's where I've been a lot of the time too, and I do, a lot of people don't like to focus as much on that first year, but it does still matter. I mean, you have to look at the overall body of work. And again, one thing
real quick, people always like to point to the 18 game. I get so sick of this pushback of, if it wasn't for the 18 game point streak, he wouldn't have done what he did. Okay, but you can't just take that away. That's not how sports work. You can't say, you can use that argument for anything in sports, literally. You can let's say, let me use a football equivalent. You could say, this quarterback threw for 40 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Well, if he hadn't have thrown for 6 touchdowns in this game, he wouldn't have ended up with 40 touchdowns. Well, yeah, duh. I mean, that's called math. So, yeah, you can't just take away something from somebody just because it was unexpected or it was incredible or it was unlikely. That's just not how sports work. We go by numbers. We go by facts. We go by things that happened. And that team did go on an 18-game point streak. Actually, they went 16-0-2. And I always try to remind people that I think that when you say 18-game point streak, it actually diminishes what that run really was, which was winning 16 out of 18 games.
Which is actually one game in regulation.
When you actually put it that way, it actually sounds more incredible than an 18-game point streak, in my opinion. 16-0-2 sounds more impressive than an 18-game point streak, even though they're the same thing. So, I mean, for me, I've always okay, let's see what Andrew Brunette actually shows us. You have a really good year that you overperformed in a really bad year where the team underperformed. Year 3 can be the tiebreaker. Go ahead, Max. Sorry, I had to get that out there.
Oh, you're good. I'm trying to adjust my hat. Either way, I'll talk. But either way, people also forget in that same season for the Preds, they had a 13-3-0 streak in November and December. So they had 2 instances in the same year where they really dug deep and won games. Plus, the career year that Gus Nyquist had, Colton Sissons too, Jeremy Lauzon took a huge step in his development. I mean, Andrew Brunette did a lot of good things for the Preds in his first year too. You can't just forget about that.
I think what's really hurting Andrew Brunette's stock the most is, and I will, for the people who, and there are plenty of them out there, plenty of them follow me, I consider them friends, they could not be more anti-Brunette. And they will say, yeah, but Chad, what about the fact that the locker room's not rallying around him? Well, we don't really know that.
Right.
I mean, we can go off what they say in the media. We can try to read between the lines. We can try to the worst damning evidence is definitely the Jonathan Marchessault comments, which weren't pretty. But what do you expect him to say? Yeah, the system didn't work. And even I will give Trotz a little bit of credit. He did say, even though I hated his press conference and what he said there, I will give Trotz credit to some degree that he did kind of hint at the fact that things have to be tweaked and things have to be changed.
Yeah, he had been saying that. He had been saying that too during the season, where he had asked Brunette to try some different things too. One thing I'll also say on the adjustment front, and look, I'm not trying to just let Brunette off the hook here, kind of a learning experience, but one thing I did mention in that article is, as much as certain fans are not going to like to hear this, when you do what Andrew Brunette did in his first year, where you get that much out of a bad roster, yes, that Preds team last year that made the playoffs, but that 18-game win streak was a bad roster even after the deadline additions. What he did with that team and getting almost 100 points out of them, when you do that, you get a little leeway in terms of adjustments, especially when the other team, the Preds had last year, this past year, I should say, had as many problems as they did. So, I mean, think about it. Like and one thing I said, if you have a job, you're doing really well, then you start dealing with a lot of bad situations, a lot against you. Are you going to think it's because you're not making adjustments or because what you're dealt with? You're going to also partly be thinking, well, I'm being dealt a bad hand and what I did previously worked. It's human nature.
Yeah, I agree.
And one thing I always say too, okay, if nothing else, if you agree with nothing else, what I'm saying, listen, here's what hill I will die on. Were the Preds a few Andrew Brunette adjustments away from being, 10, 15 points better? Sure. They were not Andrew Brunette adjustments away from salvaging the season by any means. No. They were going to be a few points better, but that is it. It was not going to cure much else.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that this year is a prove-it year. I think that Andrew Brunette, if you're ranking head coaches who are on the hot seat entering the season, you can make an argument that Andrew Brunette's at the top of the list in terms of coaches who are entering the season on the hottest of seats. I don't think Andrew Brunette can afford another really bad opening month of the season and think that his job is safe. He's got to really prove something. And it's really going to come down to, for me, I don't even think it's about the veterans. I think the way this team opens next year is going to be all about how good do the young players look.
Right.
Because Trotz has already put his confidence in that. Trotz has already pretty much said, we've got to start opening the door to our prospects and to our younger players. And first, there's two players I'm looking at, Luke Evangelista and Fedor Svechkov. I mean, how are those guys going to look to open next season?
And I wrote in my article where I was like, potentially reasons against Brunette, I wrote in my article saying, that's a big thing that Brunette's got to do well with. The youngsters aren't doing well. That's not
that's the mark of a truly great head coach in the NHL. And this is what Andrew Brunette's going to have to prove to all of us is that he is cultivating a team that he can lead into the next few years. Otherwise, why are we wasting our time? Why are we delaying the inevitable? And this is where I will agree with the Brunette naysayers here. Is that, are we delaying the inevitable? And I think you said this before.
I covered that exact thing on my article.
Maybe that's where I saw it. So kudos to you because it stuck with me. You have said, and I've seen other people say it too, are we delaying the inevitable? Is Brunette going to be fired after year 3 anyway?
What the angle I kind of took there, I actually took a few angles with that one. I said, look, well, number one, you don't truly know. As much as we potentially think we do, you don't truly know. Number two, and especially one thing I always also point to is kind of what the Boston Bruins did with Jim Montgomery. Didn't work with him at all. And in fact, it really looks like it's backfired against them. So, you got to keep that in mind. You don't want to get rid of a guy like Brunette if you have any thought that maybe he's still a good coach, because he could easily go somewhere and still be a good coach. You want to give him every chance to, prove himself. And number three, I also said, well, for as, much as certain things on this roster need to be tailored to Brunette, the roster still is a general roster issue that no one coach is going to save. So if you just try and, get a new coach, well, you're back in a situation where you got to give him a certain leash. And ultimately, you're playing the same game of, you got to give him his time. Then you're firing him pretty quickly. Then you're in this cycle. You kind of might as well just play it out with Brunette. And, and either way, at the end of next year, potentially you're in the head coaching search. Because here's the scenarios I look at it, trying to kind of simplify it. You keep Brunette this coming year. He doesn't start out well. He gets fired midseason. Then you replace him. Then you replace him in the next offseason. Well, you replace the interim coach. You have an interim coach. So you end the season with an interim coach and the next year on the search. Whereas if you hire a new coach and things don't go well, he's at least getting the year. He's at least getting the next year. You give him 1 year and you fire him after that, potentially, then you look really bad. And then you're in the coaching search again. I mean, would you rather...
If it goes really bad next year and Brunette gets fired midseason, which I would give it a 50-50 probability with where I'm sitting right now. I'm very much in the middle. I really don't know either way. It's a coin flip for me whether Brunette makes it through a full third year. I feel like if this team shows serious improvement and at least pushes to make the playoffs, Trotz will probably keep him. I really feel that way. And I know fans don't like to hear that. But I think Brunette has a extremely long leash with Trotz that most GMs do not give their head. I think the Preds front office and Trotz and the relationship between Trotz and Brunette is drastically different than most relationships between GMs and head coaches in this league. This league is notorious for running through head coaches like you run through a pair of underwear. But I don't think that's going to happen here. We've already proven it's not going to happen here. I think the Preds would have to have another year like we just saw for Trotz to actually pull the trigger and fire him against his own wishes. I don't think Trotz wants to fire Brunette at all. He wants every fiber of his being to have an excuse to keep Brunette past even next year. I really feel that way. Yeah. Just reading it from the outside. I think if this team shows some type of progress next year, but again, it's all predicated on how do the young players look. If we see really awesome development and growth from the future of this franchise, Evangelista, Svechkov, when you look at your defensive corps, when you think about Adam Wilsby's a big one for me. When you look at guys like that, and then whoever else might make their debut, or I know Joakim Kimmel has already made his debut, but he hasn't really played. He's played 2 games maybe. If he ends up becoming a more regular in the NHL lineup, how much growth does he show? If we're seeing tangible results from this younger core, and it's a direct attribute to what Brunette is cultivating, then regardless of where the Predators finish in the standings, I think you've got to give Brunette more time if that happens.
You did understand the point I was making about, firing now versus, bringing a new head coach and getting a bad situation with him. You know what I'm saying there, right? Yeah, like that. Yeah. Like, I just think with that, you're kind of better off just writing out Brunette versus bringing a new coach, and you potentially have more issues because you didn't fix the roster.
Yeah, and I originally said that the best thing that Brunette has going for him is lack of time. He's only been coached for 2 years. Even in NHL terms, that's not a lot of time. That's a very small sample size to just, though it was a really, really bad year and historically bad, especially considering all the expectations. And I didn't really like what Trotz said when it comes to how he kind of said like the preseason expectations were unrealistic. That rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah.
Did that rub you the wrong way?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it didn't rub me the right way.
When I saw that, when I heard that from Trotz, I was like, "Are you serious, bro?
Yeah,
you're trying to spin this like we were all wrong for thinking."
I would say the one area, the one kind of excuse-making area where I think I could have agreed with him was where he said the lack of finishing was a huge part of it. I think he's actually very much right about. I think, just the lack of finishing chances was a huge reason the Preds were not a better team. And there were several games where, you look at it, the Preds got a ton of chances, they just couldn't score. But you can't act like that's the only piece. That's a fraction of the issue here. That's just getting players finishing goals. Like I just said, you were not you were not like this many Brunette adjustments away from being a better team. You weren't just this many players finishing goals away from being a good team. You know what I'm saying? It's everything. So you can't just act like the players not finishing chances are the only reason they didn't do well, which, again, not like saying he did that, but that point to say is that is the one area with Trotz and all that where I could say, okay, he's got a point here.
All right, let's shift gears a little bit, and let's talk a little bit about how the NHL draft lottery went. And the Preds fall back to number 5. The worst scenario we could have expected, possibly. So Max, we all knew that they were never going to win the first pick. How could that ever happen? First of all, draft lotteries have the worst reputation right now. Think about what just happened in the NBA with the Dallas Mavericks.
I'm not this kind of person, but man, they are never beating the rigged allegations.
But
as long
anyway,
as they have a lottery system in place, they'll never beat the
so
Islanders.
here is how the 2025 draft order is now that the NHL lottery is set. The New York Islanders win the top pick. Total surprise. San Jose Sharks lost the top pick. They were the number one team, best odds. The Blackhawks had the second best odds. They fall to number 3. The Utah Mammoth get number 4. So they want that. The Utah Mammoth actually, your big winners in the draft lottery was the Islanders and the Mammoth. And then the Predators fall to number 5, which was the worst position they could have possibly fallen into. They couldn't have fallen behind 5. Then you got the Flyers at number 6. I'm just going to read the top 10. Flyers number 6, Bruins number 7, Kraken number 8, Sabres number 9, Ducks number 10. So the overall belief is there's a lot of agreement in who the top 2 picks will be. There's not a lot of agreement in who will be number 1 and number 2, but everyone is in agreement that these 2 players will be picked in the top 2, and that is Michael Misa and Matthew Schaefer. So you've got a dynamic defenseman, puck-moving defenseman, kind of proclaimed as the best all-around player, safest player in the draft probably, in Matthew Schaefer. And then Misa is just the breakout candidate who shot up draft boards this year, 130-plus points this past season in the OHL. I don't care what league you're playing for.
That's crazy.
I don't care if you're playing pond hockey. That is crazy. So those are your top 2 picks. We know the Preds are not going to be in position to take those players. But I just got one mock draft. This is from our partners, the Hockey Podcast Network. This is their mock draft. So they've got Porter Martone, who I mentioned at the beginning of the episode. He is a winger. He's a big body. He's physical. Totally fits the Trotz system. I'll tell you that. His makeup and size really translates well to the NHL level. But when you think about the Preds, when you would like to think in a perfect world, if the Preds just had the season they had and they just got a top 5 pick, that they would take a center. Wouldn't you think, Max?
Yeah, you would think, but you also don't want to fall into the trap of just taking a player for position. You have to take a player available,
and that's what you have to deal
Especially
with here.
Especially with the Preds, where there's no quick fix. The only way you really build this thing from the ground up is best player available.
So they've got Roger McQueen at number 3. This is what I'm saying about this mock draft right now. Is mock drafts right now outside of the top 2 are all over the place, and so it's going to be really fun to watch as a fan because there's a lot of suspense with this year's NHL draft. Tankathon, I'm reading right now. They've got Schaefer going to the Islanders at number 1, Misa going to the Sharks at number 2, Porter Martone going to the Blackhawks at number 3, James Higgins, the Boston College USA national team standout center, going to the Mammoth at number 4, which the Mammoth jumped 10 spots in this year's draft. And then the Preds taking Anton Frondell of Sweden. I'm not a fan of that pick at all. I do not. I out of all the top players in this draft, I feel like Frondell has the highest bust potential. I'm not an expert. I could be wrong. I'm just giving my opinion. Anyone can push back on me on that, and I'll listen. That would be my least exciting choice if the Preds end up taking Anton Frondell. Caleb Denoyer is another center who he gets a lot of flack for being undersized, but I like Caleb Denoyer because he is balanced. He's got good intangibles. He's got a good head on his shoulder. He's a smart player, and he's got that dog in him. So the Flyers I think Denoyer is going to be on the board for the Preds. There's a chance that Porter Martone or James Higgins could also be on the board for the Preds at number 5. I will be extremely happy with any 3 of those players if they're on the board at number 5. Higgins, Martone, or Denoyer. Give me any 3 of those, and I will be very, very happy.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say I've watched a ton. I can't say I've watched a ton of the draft prospects yet. Admittedly, I'm more of an NFL draft guy than an NHL
That's
draft
fair.
guy, mainly because the guys in the NFL play like right away. But this is probably one of the years I'm going to have to really do a lot more watching as the Preds are having.
Well, I will say that there isn't a ton of ready-to-play potential in this year's draft class outside of Schaefer and Misa. There's a chance
that's usually kind of how it is. There's no like.
That's pretty normal. That's pretty typical. It's pretty typical. There is. I have heard that Hagens could be ready to play, but outside of that, Martone, Frondel, Denoyer, any of those guys are 2 or 3 years away from being ready for the NHL. So there's that. But we'll see how it goes. I mean, the Preds are still in really good position to draft a franchise player. So it's not the end-all, be-all that they fell to number 5. It does suck that the season we just endured did not land us a top 3 pick. But either way, they're going to get a good player. Where the draft class gets really dicey and very like, God, you could definitely select a bust is once you get outside of that top 5 and you get more to the 8, 9, 10 range. There's a lot of guys that a lot of scouts are not in agreement with. I think where the Preds are picking at number 5, as long as they do their scouting properly, they're guaranteed to get a really good player on the board either way. That's kind of how I read it. That's how I see it. So we'll see how it goes. It's impossible to know. I think James Hagens is the biggest wild card in the top 5 that's going to shake up everything. Because some people think Hagens could fall out of the top 5. Some people think Hagens could even be taken number 1 overall. He's that polarizing of a player from what I've read about Hagens. So he's kind of the wild card for me in this entire top 5 of the draft and how it goes. If Hagens, for some crazy reason, was taken in the top 2 out of nowhere unexpectedly, then that could change who's available for the Preds at number 5. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. Let's move along here and let's talk about Max. You wanted to get into some offseason targets for the Preds.
Yeah, I did. So I'll kind of talk about. Actually, I wrote an article too about 3 guys I think could not be back next year, but also some targets I've looked at, and I've done a little. I played a lot with the Puck GM on Puck PD. I've had a lot of fun with that. I love going there and just taking on acting like a GM. The closest I'll get to making moves in a front office. But anyway, I've thought about some guys on the team that I think might not be back this year. We talked a little about on this podcast, but I'll kind of hint back to the article I wrote. Number 1, I'm thinking the Preds have a decision to make with Jeremy Lauzon, last year of his contract. Quality player at this point in his career, not a superstar by any means, but again, a solid quality player. Again, Preds got to make a decision. Barry Trotz even said at the press conference that he's going to be in touch with his agents on, with 1 year left on the deal, figuring out the way forward there. I assume the Preds are not going to want to go into next offseason with that not being resolved. So, but I could see Lauzon where the team is right now. I could see Lauzon being moved on from. I think it just makes sense, especially with the overloading at left defense. I see potentially a move being made there. This one will make fans sad. Colton Sissons, too, I think is kind of one of those guys who could be on the way out. Again, 1 year left on the contract. This point in his career, he's a bottom 6 guy. He's in his 30s. Again, fan favorite. Does it really make sense to keep him around with given the situation? I don't really know. I could see the Preds making a choice to move him on from him as well. After those are the top 2 I had, and I will say for the third player I put on the list, I put Cole Smith there. Grant, now it was a lot harder. I think there's a and at least in my mind, there's a clear drop off after Lauzon and Sissons on potentially moving away from guys. I put Cole Smith there again. I think he's carved out a role in the Preds bottom 6 for a few years now. Brings a lot of physicality. I could see teams coveting that if deeper teams that need to add in their bottom 6 teams that are contending, they could use Cole Smith. So I could see that potentially being made there with the deal. As far as potential targets, though, I've talked a lot about Trevor Zegras being a Preds target. I still am. Granted, it may not work out. Maybe the guy's just not going to reach his talent at this point. Who knows? But I would like to see the Preds take a chance on it with the draft capital they got. his age. He's still very young. I believe he's like 23 years old. Obviously, the talent's there. Seems like a guy who really needs to change the scenery. Really would improve the Preds' speed, especially if he were to play through the center position. I'd love to see him take a chance there. Again, it's going to be hard to get a clear answer at the center position which is what the Preds need. But I think that's a reasonable chance to take right there. For the Preds, is a guy that could turn out. If not, well, you try, and it was a good try for a guy that made sense. So I'd like to see them take that chance. I've also looked at Dawson Mercer for the New Jersey Devils.
That'd be a big one.
I like him a lot. He's pretty much. I know Barry Trotz likes Michael Bunting. I potentially looked at the Preds making a swap there. They both have very similar cap hits on their contracts. Mercer brings a lot of speed to the Preds lineup, and he also can play net front. He also had his best statistical season with Ange Brunette as an assistant on New Jersey, so there's some familiarity there. I would like to see that. I think that'd be a good move. Again, bring more speed to the Preds, potentially a guy for the future, and has center capabilities too. That's how you potentially also could maybe help out at the center position. Again, I don't know if it's a clear solution, but again, you're taking steps to be proactive there. And then also on defense, I had one guy I was thinking of, and this is the one I'm definitely least sure of. Anyone who's watched him more can correct me if I'm way off base. And I base a lot of it off of his steadily improving analytics, although still not very good, and the fact that he just got some pretty big minutes while playing the final quarter of the year with the Boston Bruins. I've looked at Henry Jokiharju as a potential add to the Preds defense. 25 years old still, would be pretty cheap. Again, a guy who may not work out, but again, you bring some youth to that side of defense. Again, they need help on the right side of defense badly. I mean, I can know what I don't want to do is sign a guy like Aaron Ekblad to a big deal.
Well, that's not going to happen anyway.
But I also don't think it's very realistic that the Preds will go out and make a trade for a guy like Noah Dobson or Evan Bouchard.
No, I think if the Preds make any tweaks to their roster, it's going to be on defense. That's just me personally. Could be wrong. I think they need to get much more physical on defense. I thought there were times where they just got bullied. They weren't the old school Preds. And you gotta get. I know they were good on the penalty kill all year, but at the same time, I just think that they got to get tougher and more physical in that area. We all know they got to get faster, but that's going to be done through again, I'm going to go back to it. It's all about, are the young players ready to finally graduate? I mean, that's the only way the Preds are going to dig out of the perpetual rebuild that they're staring at right now, is if the younger players are ready to graduate into being legit everyday NHL starters. Outside of that, I don't think Trotz has a lot of wiggle room when it comes to upgrading his roster this year from the outside. I think he realizes that when you look at the contracts on the books, I mean, he is kind of forced to run it back next year. I mean, he really is.
Somewhat.
I mean, you're stuck with, I'm not saying all these guys are bad players, and I'm not trying to say this in a negative way, but you're stuck with Forsberg. You're stuck with Stamkos. You're stuck with Marshall. So you're not necessarily stuck with O'Reilly, but no one wants to part ways with him.
You're stuck with Brady Shea.
You're stuck with Brady Shea. And then you move further down the roster, you don't have depth unless these young guys are ready to really step up and be big-time players for this team. You don't have depth right now. You have a lot of youth and inexperience that needs to prove it. And I'm tired of this fan base coddling the younger players. It's over. I'm done with coddling Luke Evangelista. I'm done with easing these guys. They're like, oh, don't talk crap about the younger players. Like it's all Brunette's fault. No, these guys, like we see other teams thrive with younger players. It's time for the Preds to do that this coming up year. I'm done with it. They got to prove it, especially Luke Evangelista.
Yeah, no, I mean, part of where my head's at with the Preds offseason coming up is, look, there's no way that the Preds are just going to be fixed next year. It's not going to happen.
No, they're not. It's not going to be a magical thing where they're just fixed out of nowhere and they're going to be back to where they were, where they like, I mean, the last thing they should have beat the Canucks in the first round. They really gifted that series to the Canucks, and they would have got beat in the second round anyway. So I mean, how much more would that have really meant anyway? But they should have won a playoff series that year. Shoulda, coulda, woulda, but they should have won that playoff series.
But again, where my head's at with the offseason is, look, let's not try and patch and fix anything. I hear your point about the Preds need to be more physical. Yes, but again, they're not going to be anything as far as the crazy contender next year. So let's not focus so much on let's not focus so much on one area. I mean, I know I've focused on the speed a little bit, but look, my main thought is let's acquire guys rather than just focusing on one area of the team fix or the second area, whatever. Let's focus on getting guys who we think can be players for the future. A Trevor Zegras, a Dawson Mercer, and again, I know way less about him than the others, but maybe a Henry Jokiharju, a guy. Again, they may not all work.
No, I like your thought process.
But I think if you're guys who, if they work out, great. If they don't, you tried. You're not really hurt.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right in the sense that if you are going to take some swings at some players, you better make sure that they're players who are going to be here for the long term and not players. Let's not take any more swings at rentals or guys. Let's not continue to dig ourselves in this hole of being the retirement home.
Yeah,
for aging superstars.
Again, like I say, what I can tell you, I can see if people who watch a guy like Henry Jokiharju more than me may have much more to say on that, because he's the guy I've definitely watched the least, and I will stress that. But again, what I can tell you I do not want to do is go splurge on big money contracts like Aaron Ekblad or guys like that. No, I'd much rather take a guy. I'd do a younger, cheaper, shorter deal on a guy like Henry Jokiharju. If he doesn't work out, okay.
We've also got a prospect pool that I think has definitely shown a lot of improvement and depth over the last few years. So we got to give them chances to get called up. I think next year could be a really good opportunity to see what some of these guys are made of. I think we have to come with grips with reality that next year is going to be a trial run of proportions. Yeah. It's going to be dramatically different than the expectations of last season. I think we're going to enter next season with much more tempered expectations. At least I am. I'm going to enter next season with a very open mind. I'm not going to have high expectations.
Right.
I'm going to enter it really game one to open the season. I'm going to be excited about Preds hockey being back. Of course, I don't care how bad they are. I'm going to be excited when they hit the ice, but I'm going to have very tempered expectations. I'm going to learn from my mistakes of last offseason.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to be really optimistic about seeing a new culture be built. I know that's corny, but I need a new culture being built. And I want to see that culture being built from the ground up from the younger players. Because if we're ever going to dig ourselves out of this, it's going to take those guys being ready to step up. And it's going to this organization is going to have to prove that over the last 5 draft classes or so, they've drafted effectively. Yeah. And right now, the jury is still out on whether they have. As you said earlier, Max.
I think they've just done it poorly.
Not over the last 5 draft classes. We don't know.
Maybe not most recent, but yeah, no.
No, going past that, of course. But as I was about to say, it takes a lot longer to get the jury out on draft classes in the NHL. It sometimes takes 3 or 4 years to know if a draft class was good or not.
Right.
Is my point. So I think that the time is up. I think this next year is going to be a big opportunity for prospects to show what they're made of. Is my point.
Absolutely.
There'll be plenty of opportunities.
Yeah.
So, all right. It's been an awesome episode. Appreciate everyone jumping in. Let's say hi to Mike Twitter real quick. He's an OG. He watched the show from the beginning. I'm glad he jumped in right before we finished up tonight. Mike, it's good to hear from you. I hope you're doing well. Thank you everyone for watching on YouTube. Hit subscribe below. Hit us up on X at Catfish Eyes or Facebook. And we will try to get an episode up quicker next time. But until then, it's been a good episode. We will see you soon and take care, everybody. See you guys.